Did you jump straight into multifamily or?
So my first passive investments were all multifamily.
Okay, so
And
you
then
haven't bought any single family?
I've never bought a single family other than the houses I live in. Never. I shouldn't say that. I was once invested in a single family fund. So they syndicated a deal. But unfortunately, with COVID and then the rapid increase of value of houses, the model was broke, right? So, their goal was buy a house with a 200,000 ARV at a 1% rule. Well, that all went out the window when real estate in Texas, quadrupled in value. So that fund, but that was the only thing I did in that space was I put some money into a syndication for that. And it was one of my more, it gave me a 5% cash on cash at the end. And I think if their buy box didn't break, it would have been a much better thing. But it's a numbers game on the single family side, right? Buy it for X, lease it for Y, and that's how it works.
And then multiply that times hundreds.
Yeah.
There's a single family house, $200 a month. That doesn't really do a lot. It's mainly it's a long-term play.
Yeah. But I've never met anybody in the single family space that now is in the multifamily space that says, oh, I wish I would go back to the single family space, right? Nobody. I mean, I've got a friend, two friends, and they never heard of multifamily, and they connected with me at a meetup about a year ago and said, we heard about this multifamily thing. We want to learn about it. And they owned and self-managed 116 homes. And the biggest they had was an eightplex. And it was a lot. They still do. They still have them. There's still some of them they're moving away, but there's economies in scale, right? And it grows you quicker and it reduces your risk, right? If you have 100 apartments and you have 10 vacant, which is a lot, you're still 90% occupied,
Yeah.
right? If you have 10 homes, and you've got, it really can't hurt. So there's a lot of economies of scales in the multifamily. And I've invested in other asset classes as well, just because I wanted to be a little more diversified than having everything in multifamily with, the number of syndications I've done.
Yeah, and there's pros and cons to both. I'm like you, or I still have single family rentals. I'm slowly getting rid of them and transferring those into our fund, which is really focused on multifamily right now. But there's definitely pros and cons to both. A lot of folks do feel like single family, it's the required step into multifamily, and I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. You can.
Yeah.
There's skills you're gonna. I mean, you have gained valuable skills in the corporate world and brought it into real estate. There's obviously skills you can bring from single family and bring it into multifamily, but it's not required. You can get those skills elsewhere. You can work for companies. But for those that multifamily, that is where they want to be, but they feel like they have to go the single family route. Any advice there?
Yeah. So, if I was, again, to go into the multifamily space, at some point, you either have to have a network of people you can raise a lot of money from, or you need to have some money yourself. So I started out, I got a payday when the company got bought out. So, I had money, so I was able to invest. If I was starting as a brand new young person and I was 18 again, I'd start out, the bigger pockets. I'd be starting out with house hacking, and I'd be starting out with, I'd buy a duplex, and I'd buy a fourplex. But I would hope that I would get to the epiphany of multifamily a little bit sooner. But it's a great way for someone to start, and starting is the most important part of this, right? And then continuing and then doing the best you can to maximize time for value. On the single family space, it's a lot of time, right? And you still have to put time and energy into it, unless you hire management companies. But the margins are so low that they tend to eat up a lot of the profits. So you're only getting the appreciation gain, which is still substantial, but it's just a little more risky when you do it. But again, I don't say not do it. I just say do it, get your base, build up some of your net worth, build up some of your skill set, and instead of getting 100 homes, go from that duplex to a fourplex to an eightplex to a 16plex to a 32plex. Think of the math that way. And then once you start amassing those things, then you'll connect with partners, because you can do a lot of that on your own or with a small group of friends. And then syndication is a team sport. So at some point now, you need a team, you need partners, and then you can go ahead and utilize those partnerships to get into the bigger space.
Yeah, in the team sport, that really plays into how it would be difficult to jump with no skills or experience directly into multifamily, just because at some point you have to add some value. So if you have cash, that's value.
Yeah.
If you have a good balance sheet, that's that's value. If you've got good construction management, project management, asset management, that's value. But if you don't have any of those things, it's difficult unless, and this is the one thing that a new investor could do, it's going to be challenging, but you could do it, and that's get the deal.
Yes.
Now, you're probably not going to go have brokers of 200 plus units really entertain you if you don't have any experience. It's just going to be difficult to get in that door. But smaller multifamily, the 10, 20, 30 unit, and anything sub 50, you probably could.
Yeah, you definitely can. And you can definitely like I'm fortunate and unfortunate at the same time. So I live in Austin, Texas, right? One of the hottest markets in America. So that's great because there's lots of activity, there's lots of value. But if I lived in Wichita, Kansas, it's a smaller market. So I would have stood a better chance of finding that mom and pop operator just because big operators aren't drawn to smaller markets as much. And so, again, real estate in your neighborhood is the easiest thing to start with, but it doesn't always make sense, right? If you live in Los Angeles, this statement, or San Francisco, that's a super challenge. Do people still do it? Absolutely. And are they successful? Absolutely. It's just, it's a tougher mountain.
Definitely.